Just amazing how the prophecy is fulfilled here. God gives him blessing not only with a child, not only with land, not only with great wealth, but he also gives him the final blessing that so many people in these days would have seen as a great blessing. I think we do to this day too. The blessing of old age. Now, many of us would say old age is not a blessing. Right? Right? I got the arthritis of an 80-year-old already. What am I going to be like when I'm 80? I'll have the arthritis of a 904-year-old? I don't know. I'm not, that's not going to be so much fun. But this is a blessing from God. God is blessing Abraham. He is not only saying, I'm going to give you a son. I'm not only going to give you heirs. I'm not only going to give you land. I'm not only going to give you prosperity, but I am going to give you age to enjoy it in. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, it's beautiful. Right on, Randy. That's great. God is saying, Abraham, you are going to be blessed. You are going to receive a land in old age. This is extreme success. Deuteronomy 7:9 reads, Know therefore that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God, who keeps his covenant and his loving kindness to 1,000 generations to those who love him. One of the ways that we know God is that he keeps his promise, that he keeps his covenants. Now, verse 17, when the sun had set and the darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot and a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord cut a covenant with Abraham and said, to your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, and all these other great things, people. All right? So, this flaming torch and smoking firepot, what are they representing? Who's this covenant between? Abraham and God. Who's the only one that walks through the pieces? God, right? Yeah. This signifies God walking through. Jesus Christ, part of the Trinity, right? This is God walking through. This smoking firepot represents the presence of God. And who walks the blood path? Does Abraham walk the blood path? No, who only walks the blood path? God, right? God is the only one who walks through the blood path, who passes through it. This is one of those covenants that God can only make with himself. Abraham is not equal to God. Abraham cannot make a promise to God. God is making a promise with himself that he will do this for Abraham. God is actually making this promise with himself. Hebrews 6:13 says this. When God made his promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater for him to swear by, he swore by himself, saying, I will surely bless you and give you many descendants. And so after waiting patiently, Abraham received what was promised. And now in the next slide, you're going to see a picture of a cross. And that's exactly what we see in the cross. The cross is a covenant that God made with himself, the covenant between Jesus and the Father, co-equals. And the covenant was cut with the blood of Christ. Remember how we said the blood path covenant was always a curse, just in case the covenant was broken. There was a curse if the covenant was broken. And literally, Jesus becomes the curse of the covenant. Scriptures say, cursed is the man who hangs upon the tree. We are not only really involved in the covenant of the cross, God made that covenant with us, with himself. It was a covenant that God made with himself. So what was Abraham's role in this covenant? That's the question today that we're going to ask. What was Abraham's role in this covenant? Because it's so much of what we do now with Christ. Simply, he is to have faith in the promise. Abraham believed the Lord, he credited it to him as righteousness, and he is to trust the promise of God. He was to trust that God would be faithful to this promise. Isn't that beautiful to hear kids just enjoying themselves at church? I just love that sound. If you want to define what biblical faith is trusting in the covenant promise of God. And in fact, the Bible says that we could trust God's covenant promises. We are like Abraham. Moreover, when we trust that God's and his promise become in line with the people of Abraham, we become one of the stars of Abraham, one of his descendants. This is the amazing